Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and areas that are covered. Maybe you're interested in becoming involved in the DATV Experimenters Nights. You realise that you do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate in the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain club rooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless Station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. We get underway with our program on a Wednesday night from 7:30 p.m. local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK7 OTC.
Okay, this is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania with our DATV Experimenters Night. And I have a couple of people in the studio. I've got Rex, VK7MO, and welcome back.
Thank you, Justin.
And I've also got, with a trickery, I've also got Richard, VK7ZBX.
Thank you very much.
A regular contributor, like Rex, really. So welcome into the studio. And one of the reasons why we have Rex and Richard in the studio is there was a contact, or a couple of contacts actually, made a couple of weeks ago when the Hepburn chart was looking absolutely fantastic to New Zealand. And Rex has actually done a little bit of analysis of, there we go. Analysis with a few people, Richard being one of them, and Roger in, now what's Roger's call sign?
ZL3RC, but there's also Roger W3SZ.
Yeah, which is could be, so tell us a bit about Roger W3SZ.
Okay.
Rex.
We are later going to talk about an article in the DUBUS, which Roger W3SZ and I wrote jointly. And the interesting thing about how I got in touch with him is David 3HZ and I did a lot of work on aircraft scatter.
Yes.
And he picked up on that and has got some excellent web pages and things and programs to use for aircraft scatter. And he referenced David 3HZ's websites where there was articles that David and I had written.
Okay.
And the website had stopped. And he wrote to me and said, did I know...
David, yes.
He knew I knew David, but did I know how we could get this website back again?
Okay.
And I said, oh, well, you probably... it's probably interesting for you to know that we're actually doing some interesting stuff on using Q65 for aircraft scatter.
Okay.
And that started a whole lot of work between Roger and I, which resulted in
The article, which we'll go into in a second.
Well, at the same time, Roger and I were looking at the question of the Hawaii to California path.
Yes.
And Roger's been doing some excellent ray tracing stuff, which he used to analyse the ZL path across to New Zealand.
Okay.
And so we will go on to that story. And in fact, I probably should have attributed this to Roger as well. As there are two Rogers. There's Roger ZL3RC in New Zealand, and then Roger W3SZ, who's been doing the clever stuff.
Yep.
Now, this is the Hepburn charts a day or two before.
Okay.
And it was looking pretty promising, and Roger ZL3RC, who lives at Christchurch on the other side of the island, drove to the spot that's at the end of that black line.
Yep.
And
was this the same spot that he worked you?
Very close.
Very close.
I mean, on this occasion, he worked both of us.
No, but he worked you up into New South Wales.
He did, and then last year he worked me in Tassie.
Yeah, okay, okay.
From roughly the same spot. I forget, he has been changing spots,
right,
trying to optimise it, but this one seems to be the best spot.
Okay, cool.
Primarily because you can get well off the road, and
yep.
Although it is got a picnic table, it means people want to set up and have a picnic, but you know.
Right, okay.
And so forth. So this passed just under 2,000 kilometres.
Okay.
And as it turned out, Roger got over there early, so we started listening, and there was nothing. We took 1296 and 2 metres to compare the two.
Okay.
And we started about, this is 0600 on the Saturday, and about 00 Z on the Saturday. We started and there was nothing, and I think I rang Richard and said, there's nothing there at the moment, I'll let you know if it's worth going up the mountain.
Okay.
And
he's all packed.
and then after a while we started to hear some signals on 1296.
Okay.
I said to Richard, I think you better go.
Woohoo!
So, when we'll go to the next slide. Now this is pretty exciting because this is the first time Richard, I think you might have worked 1296 across there on Hayden ski, have you? But
No, not on Hayden ski, no. I worked, we had a little field day once a couple of years ago. We went down just above Kingston, and we set up early in the morning when the Hepburns were looking really good, and yeah, Hayden, myself and Murray set up, and we worked ZL on 2 metres 70 centimetres, and not quite 1296.
Right. So this is.
I certainly didn't decide to go to work.
So this is Richard's first contact to ZL on 1296, and probably it's about your first contact out of the state, is it, on 1296?
Yeah, it probably would be.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
That's right.
It would be, yes. Yeah,
And
right.
and then he actually worked 10 gigs about 10 minutes later, which is
woohoo!
This is pretty exciting.
That's right. Now, the fact that we had 2 stations, Richard, who was part way up Mount Wellington.
Yep.
This wasn't really designed specifically for the height, but more because it's the only place on Mount Wellington you can actually
Nice convenient spot to get off the road.
actually be off the road and beam at New Zealand.
Okay.
And I was at home, so we had the opportunity of comparing 2 people at different heights.
Cool.
And also comparing 10 gigs and 1296.
Okay.
We used the same mode for everything, which was Q65 60B.
Okay.
Next slide. Now this is the 10 gig contacts. You probably can't read any of the decodes, but the light green is what Richard received on 10 gigs, and the blue is what I received. So you can, and these are for common periods.
Oh, okay. Yes, yeah.
So you can see Richard's received nearly, just over twice as many decodes as I did.
Okay.
And yet Richard was running a 60 centimetre dish,
Yep.
and I was running a 77.
Okay.
So this was giving us a bit of a clue as the benefit of being higher in elevation.
And this is only 10 gigs. This is
That's only 10 gigs.
Yeah, okay.
That's only 10 gigs.
okay.
Now that's a bit hard to read, so we'll just go on to the next slide, which compares what Richard received with what I received.
Okay.
And there's about 9 dB difference on the common decodes.
Yep.
There's a lot of decodes that I didn't get, of course, and
Yeah.
the difference
Hold on.
we can't measure, but it might have even been worse. But that's a substantial difference,
Oh, true.
particularly when he's got the smaller dish.
You see actually like horizontal lines where almost the conditions were the same.
Yes,
I
yeah,
know.
well, the signal reports were the
Yeah.
same, yes. So, next slide. Now this is the equipment at 10 gigs. In comparison terms, it doesn't really matter because we were both receiving from ZL3RC, who was running the same power to both of us and the
Yep.
same dish size.
Okay.
But if you compare sort of 1296, we had a lot of variance between a 10 watt and 120 watts and so forth, and 10 gigs between 60 and 30. So there's a fair bit of difference in system performance because of power.
Yep.
But we can take that into account, and also the antenna gains.
Okay.
And we'll go on to the next slide.
Just is Roger still using the cut-up pedal dish?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. So it served a good purpose.
It's done very well.
I was going to go back and do grid squares there until COVID hit.
Right. Okay. Okay.
But I'm actually enjoying Roger using it, so
Well and truly.
that's good.
That's fantastic.
Now what we've done here is we've compared system performance, taking about account of antenna gains,
Okay.
power, and just assuming that the receive performance will be similar, because on both bands the noise figures essentially swamped by the atmospheric noise.
Yep. Okay.
So there'll be a little bit of difference there, but you know, we're talking 1 or 2 dBs. Now you can see that 10 gigs has got about a 40 dB better system performance than 1296.
Yep.
And yet the best decodes are in the same ballpark.
Okay.
You know.
-6, -7. Yeah.
So, next slide. Now, the reason why 10 gigs is only about the same is, for a start, there's something called free space loss, which I think is, I mean, it's used professionally and in every amateur book that you've ever read.
Yep.
But there's actually no loss in free space, if it really is free space, if it's a vacuum. What that loss really is the fact that antenna gains are all referenced to a dipole.
Yep.
And the capture area of a dipole
Is
is very small at 10 gigs compared to what it is at 1296 or 2 meters. If you
correct.
sort of
Yes.
think of a dipole.
The donut is quite small for 10
yeah.
gigs. Yes.
Now, I used the word dipole. That wasn't correct, because we all some people refer to antenna gains against the dipole, but
DPD.
dBi, which is
Isotropic.
referring to isotropic, is the better way of doing it.
Correct.
And in fact I did all these with respect to dBi.
Okay.
But because of this free space, which I call capture area loss, because the capture area is a two-dimensional thing, so it's 20 log, not just 10 log.
Yep.
The difference in frequency, that actually costs you 18 dB by going to 10 gig.
Yeah, okay.
As well as that, absorption starts to become important at 10 gigs. It's still significant even at 1296. It's about 11 dB on this path, which we can measure from the radiosonde data.
Yep.
Or calculate from it, not measure. But it increases to 36 dB when you get up to 10 gigs. So that's costing you another 25 dB. So the 18 dB plus the 25 dB is hurting you,
Yep.
despite the fact that you got about 40 dB more system performance.
Yep. Okay.
But we then come to something new that Roger W3SZ and I have jointly discovered by reading a lot of the professional literature from back in the 1960s and 70s,
Okay.
when the professional people were particularly interested in ducting after World War II, because it can tell you that there are spots where you can be invisible to the enemy, or where the enemy can be invisible to you.
Very handy. Yes.
And these occur very much on the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and California.
Okay.
And of course the Americans got a bit burnt in World War II in Hawaii and
Just a
wanted to
little.
make sure they really understood ducting for
So
their radars.
Lots of research went into.
Yeah. And what I had never used before, which had become apparent, and I think I can explain it fairly readily, is if you've got an antenna in a duct, the rays that come out of your antenna, if they come out at an angle, let's say you had an isotropic radio, so
Yep.
some of the rays would come out
Every direction.
in every direction.
Yep.
And to stay in the duct, you've actually got to have rays that are very close to the same angle as the duct.
Okay.
Otherwise they go straight through
Okay.
and come out.
Yep.
And we have found by analysing it, if they're anything more than about 0.5 of a degree, they come out. So
Ooh, that's pretty tight.
you,
Yeah. Okay.
now, if you've got an antenna, say at 2 metres, which has got a beam width of maybe 30 degrees, most of the energy doesn't go into
Into
the
the
duct.
duct. Well and truly.
But when you get to say 10 gigs, where you're down to a beam width of 3 or 4 degrees, a lot more of it is going into the duct.
Okay. Okay.
Still not all of it, because you're only, well, you can hit the duct plus or minus 0.5 and still stay in it.
Yep.
Whether it's plus or minus 0.5 or plus or minus 0.1 or just one single ray right down the middle depends on the intensity of the duct.
Yeah. Okay.
But in effect, the result of this is 10 gigs actually gets an advantage because you're using antennas with narrow beam widths and putting more energy
All into the duct.
all into the duct.
Okay.
Now this is something I had never appreciated until
Okay.
the last week or so.
Yep.
But the end result is all these, you've got, you're down 18 dB, you're down 25 dB, but you're up 10 dB. So you're losing about 33 dB.
Yep.
And in ballpark terms, this cancels out the 40 dB additional system performance And that's why you finish up with...
With the results you finish up with. That's, yeah,
with,
okay.
Now, you'd want to do far more accurate measurements and actually do 10 gigs exactly at the same time as 1296 and things like that to get a better handle. But it's...
So, okay, I've got a hypothetical.
Yep.
So you were at two different elevations.
Yes.
Are you saying that the duct it was the same duct for both those elevations?
No, I'm not. Now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Separate ones.
Which is something else we've learned. So
Okay.
we will get onto
Okay.
that in a
Sorry.
minute.
Okay.
So we'll go on to the next slide.
Yep. Hang on. There we go.
Now the next thing that's really interesting on 10 gigs is you get what I would regard as massive QSB. This is a plot of a single tone that Roger was transmitting.
So
to-
you've disappeared altogether.
To Richard. Well, at least on the spectrum display it disappeared altogether.
Yeah,
But
okay,
then
okay.
when I changed it into amplitude,
Yeah.
you can see it's
All
well,
over the place.
you can't really read what that scale is,
Um,
but the peak one is almost 20 dB.
Correct. Yes.
And it's almost going to zero.
And the bottom scale, the second to bottom line's 2.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So,
So between 2 and 20.
there's a well, it actually here went right down to zero.
To zero.
Zero.
Oh, truly.
So you've got 20 dB change, and the vertical lines are only 5 seconds. So
Okay.
you can see these bursts of signal.
Really quick QSB. Really quick
you know,
fading.
some of them are less than a second.
Yep. Yeah.
And very rapid. Now, I haven't got any data for lower frequencies, but historically I've had the view that at a lower frequency the rate at which the QSB occurs is proportional to the frequency.
Okay.
And so it's some sort of multipathing where they add or subtract
Okay.
in the duct, and that's so you need a mode that copes with that sort of QSB,
Truly.
and fortunately Q65 has got so much forward error correction that
You can
it
cope with it.
that it can cope with that and do extremely well. So
Okay.
we'll go to the next slide now. This is where we both were.
So
this-
you weren't actually that far apart.
No,
Yeah.
It's actually only four
kilometres.
kilometres apart and about 1.5 kilometres width.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you sort of take that on the scale of 2,000 kilometres to New Zealand, we had almost identical paths.
Yeah. Okay.
And we were listening at the same time.
Cool.
Next slide. Now, of recent times, radiosonde data, which I've used in the past, has been available from the University of Wyoming.
Yep.
In a form which has been available for the last, even when I was playing our radiosondes for the Bureau of Meteorology 60 years ago.
Okay.
And all they did was, because they couldn't transmit large amounts of data in those days like we can now,
Yep.
all they did is they sent information on the turning points
Right.
to limit the amount of data.
Okay.
And they only picked out the significant turning
Yep.
points
Okay.
that were important to the meteorologists.
Yep.
But of recent times, sending data around the world has become
It's nothing.
irrelevant. And they've also got better radiosondes with better resolution.
Correct.
And when we turn the radiosonde data, which is the humidity, pressure and temperature, into radiofractive index, we can now plot the ducts with quite a high level of accuracy.
Oh, truly.
And the red lines, which don't look that red, those vertical reds,
Yep.
represent a duct. Now this is
There. And
but
there.
there.
And there's probably one there as well.
You are right. Now that one is at 320 metres,
Okay.
where I was,
Yep.
and that one's where Richard was.
Well, there you go. And that's where it would have been at the top of Mount Wellington.
Yeah.
we didn't go.
And that was a really deep one.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
But in the past, when I've looked at radiosonde data, the only one I've ever seen has been that top one.
Yeah.
And I've just...
But in fact, they probably could have been there.
and
It's
I
just
didn't...
the data was...
I didn't...
Okay.
I didn't know to look.
No, okay. Well, that's phenomenal. You were just in exactly the right place.
Well, it's interesting. We had some discussion after we'd worked, and said to Rex, "Gee, it'd be really interesting to go up and actually try from the top." And there was like, yeah, but then it was like,
how do we do that?
well, finding a suitable spot, and it was an absolutely glorious day, and the mountain was full of humans. So,
And bus drivers.
it just. But I think we've sort of hatched a bit of a plan that we might investigate further. That if this phenomenon occurs again, we can go to a spot and sort of like do some tests, which I think would be.
Well, truly.
If we sort of wait until someone unparks and grab a spot there.
I love it.
So, we're pretty hopeful that this high resolution data will tell us a lot more about what's going on with these ducts.
Truly.
Unfortunately, there's no radiosonde data anywhere near where Roger's operating.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Because you can only get, my understanding is you can only get to that west coast. There's only a little bit of the the west coast that you can get to.
Well, I think they've got one radiosonde right down the bottom at Invercargill.
Okay. Yes.
And the next one is on the top, on the bottom of the North Island.
Yeah. Okay.
And the air that's flowing generally from the west is going over pretty high mountains to both of them and getting totally distorted.
Correct.
So
Yes. Yeah. And those mountains are always almost permanently covered in snow.
Yeah. So we don't get much at the other end, but what we get at this end is pretty interesting.
Fantastic. Okay.
Now we'll go to the next.
Now this is, you put a slide in here of.
Yeah. Now my friend Roger W3SZ, who we spoke about earlier, he found a Matlab routine that allows you to look at ducts for submarines in the water.
Oh, okay.
And the submariners love these ducts because that allows them to hide and not be seen and so forth.
Radio quiet and all that sort of stuff.
And so what he did is he converted this, taking account of the different speed of sound in water and radio waves and all this, into what would happen with a duct based on the radiosonde data. Now the graph in blue on the left is the radiosonde data. It's a bit...
This one?
It's a bit compressed, but you can see...
There's those, the kinks, or whatever, the ducts.
The ducts.
The duct locations.
But what he then did is made a video that automates this. Now we're going to try and show you what this looks like.
We got, that's, okay, now let me just go back here, and I'm working on it. What we need to do is go here we go, okay. So this is the first one.
This is the Hobart end, and as you those lines that you can, that one
There.
was a single line as it crossed the 320 metres.
Yep,
Now there's
okay.
another little burst there, which is
The 6.
no
7.
no. Richard is at that line there.
Okay.
I'm not reading it very well.
No, I think
I think that was the big duct at the top there.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll
I
replay.
think I was a little blip halfway up.
I'll replay that.
So I think there's you.
So there's
yes,
a little duct around about here.
Here,
That was you.
and
Then the next one's Richard.
that's the tiny one just below Richard there,
There.
and then there's the next one,
Oh, yep.
and then right up the top is the big one. Now, what Roger W3SZ did, he plots these rays for plus or minus 0.6 of a degree in 0.1 degree steps.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
So if the rays were propagating over the full range,
Yep.
you would see 13, 6 up, 6 down, and 1 in the middle.
Okay.
And in general, most of these ducts are only producing 1 or 2 rays. And
Yep.
the one that was coming
There.
to me was 1 ray, and the one that comes to Richard
Is it
about 3.
there?
Or that's
There,
there.
yep.
It might have been 4 rays.
Okay.
On the top side.
And if it had gone up the top,
It would have been off the show.
well, yes.
Whoa. Yeah, okay.
uh,
And then there's one a bit above that.
that's
Or
right.
is that an artifact?
No, that's real too.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So that's
Now that was an hour before the QSO, before the band opened.
that was 0 Zulu.
Yes.
And then this is 12 Zulu, so it's an hour later.
Now there's a surface duct there that's too low for either of us.
Okay.
Another little duct in the surface. Then there's me, and it's really not where I am. There's a little one above me.
Yep.
We're getting up towards where Richard is.
There it
and
is.
That's right. Now, so 12 hours later, Richard might have been okay. I probably wouldn't have been. And the nice one, the really strong one up the mountains,
It's gone.
It's gone.
Well, there you go. That's phenomenal.
It actually intensified where I was. Because
Yes,
we thought
yeah.
it had dropped out, but maybe it was just
Well,
very
it
long
might have come
QSB.
back.
Yeah.
Well, it might have, if we, I think you had to get away, but if you'd hung around.
Surface. That's Rex. That's yours.
No,
That's yours.
this is, actually none of those ducts were
Well, you-
right on my line. So
Oh,
that
okay.
line is me.
That's
There
Richard.
Yes, Richard's line's not showing up, but there is supposed to be a line at his height.
And that's where the other one was, right about there, and there's one.
One
And then
line.
another one,
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
Well, there you go. Wow.
So
Okay.
this is a new way of visualising ducts, which
Well and truly.
Roger has brought to us all.
Okay.
And I'd have to say it's pretty specky, and it doesn't solve all the problems because all it's telling us is what's happening at one end of the duct. We haven't got the data for the other end,
Yep.
and we don't know what happens in the middle, but it starts to tell you.
Oh no, well and truly. Well and
Yeah.
truly. So,
Right, we're back to conclusions and comments, and I think the interesting thing about this opening, it continues a sequence of 6 long-distance QSOs that I've done almost every summer for the last 6 years. There's one year I missed, but
okay.
essentially I started off doing VK7 to VK6.
Okay, yes.
In fact, the first one I did, I was still in Victoria.
Yep.
And then did 2 more contacts from up Cape Portland.
Yep.
Across to VK6, which are the 2 world records. Then I had a break, And then the last 3 years we've got through firstly from New South Wales to ZL.
Yep.
And last year just from my home location, and then again this year. Now, if you count all of the 2,000 kilometre contacts around the world,
Yes. How many are there?
there was one from Israel to Italy, one from specially planned, some Germans.
Was there one in South America, a transequatorial?
No, not on Turkey.
Oh, no.
No.
Hang on, Israel to Italy's an overland path.
No, it's not. It's right down the
The Mediterranean. Ah, of course. Okay.
You don't drive.
No. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
The next world record was done from Portugal to Cape Verde Islands, which are off Africa.
Yep. Okay.
And other than those two, all of the other contacts have been done in VK that are of this sort of length. I've been involved in all of them. Richard's been involved in one.
There you go.
And
I love it.
5DK. What's his score? Gee, I can't remember his name.
David
Anyway,
mentioned.
no, not he's 5KK.
KK. Oh, okay.
Is it?
No, guy in Mount Gambier. He worked across at about 2,200 kilometres.
To VK6. That
Yes.
was, yeah, I remember that.
At the same time as I was also
Yes.
working. In fact, I worked about 10 minutes before he did.
Yeah. Okay.
And he thought he had the world record. So, essentially, I think we've got about probably 8 contacts if we count Richard and 5GKs.
There you go.
Against about 2 for the rest of the world.
I love it.
Yeah.
Good work, guys.
Yeah.
Excellent work.
Now, the keys to success, 10 gig success, are EME capable portable stations that are GPS locked, so you're not trying to tune around and find frequencies. And you've got to have methods of pointing accurately.
Yep.
This is a message that is emblazoned in across Richard's forehead.
Yes.
3 rules of Rex.
I love it.
Are you pointing where you need to be? Are you on the right frequency?
The rapid QSB that we saw suggests that you probably would do as well with 15-second periods
Okay.
as you would with the 60-second periods that we used.
Yep.
Not that we actually tested it,
Okay.
but the year before we did a little bit of 15-second periods, and I'm starting to become more and more convinced that 15 seconds probably is going to work better. First of all, you've got a chance of hitting the pigs, and you've got 4 times as many chances because...
As long as you're not
Transferring
right on the edge
information.
and you need maximum sensitivity. To
Yeah,
go all
well,
the way down.
if you're on the edge and you lose it,
Yeah.
you've got 4 other choices, or 3 others, because there's 20 dB of QSB, and you know,
Okay.
you're going to find it. The high-resolution radiosonde data suggests that small ducts may play a part in these long-distance openings.
Yep.
So that's really a new finding that needs a lot more work on, but we reckon we're getting somewhere with it.
And you now have compliments of Roger, a tool that enables you to map them.
That's right. And the fact that Richard got a 9 dB improvement compared to me is sort of consistent with the fact that his duct was allowed a lot more rays to enter.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where we're up to.
Next time we need to try the third one, don't we?
Yes.
At that stage, Justin will have his system going.
Yeah.
At different heights, yes.
And we can all be at different heights. So your comment earlier about it wasn't this. You didn't think it was the same duct.
Yes, I don't now. If you'd have asked me a year ago, I would have said that big duct at the top was what was doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I didn't know there were these little ones.
And there was a coupling loss.
Yes, which I didn't know about either.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's fascinating. So potentially there were at least 3 ducts at play at different levels. That's
different heights and different intensities.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you, Justin.
That
Yes.
is fantastic. So, what I thought we might do, and as a bit of a follow-up, Rex, is the DUBUS exit stage left. The DUBUS, we featured this very quickly last week. The DUBUS magazine, which is celebrating 50 years for the last quarter of 2021, there is a wonderful little article in here by one Mr. Rex Moncur and Roger W3SZ on the use of Q65 for, let me go to there and there, the use of Q65 and aircraft scatter. So would you like to make a bit of a comment about this particular article?
Okay. Well, I explained before how this sort of came about, my friendship with Roger Rear.
Yep.
And almost by accident, because he was looking for David 3AZ's website. And I introduced him to the experiments, almost as an aside. I responded, I'll get on to David, and by the way, we're getting some interesting results with Q65. And he and I have spent a lot of time together. Fortunately, my mobile plan allows me to ring him for no extra cost.
Cool. I love it.
It's an Aldi, or I'm not allowed to advertise, but a grocery store.
A German grocery store.
Mobile.
It has very interesting bargains.
Good, well and truly. Always visit that centre aisle.
And it works amazingly well, and it's quite cheap, and I probably make more use of this than most Aldi customers.
Okay.
And spent the time talking to people in other countries. But we started working together. I explained that I was getting quite good results working with RET, VK3 Whiskey Echo. But there was a limitation that when the Doppler shift was very wide, we couldn't decode it. It was, it wouldn't work.
Okay.
And about this time, Joe Taylor found that a lot of people were saying, oh, Q65's no good if there's any drift on people's signals.
Okay.
And Joe's very keen on Q65. And
this is his Swiss Army knife.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, no, it's not. No, there was an in-between mode when he went for the Swiss Army knife.
Right.
And it didn't quite work as Swiss as he hoped.
Right. Okay.
So Joe introduced a small amount of drift correction, and when I heard he'd done this, I thought, if we could have some wider amount of drift correction, this might be really good for aircraft scatter.
Yep.
And Joe, I'm not sure how it worked, but anyway, I had sent Joe some files saying these are the sort of ones that would be nice to decode if you could increase the...
These are the audio files that
the audio files. And when I got up the next morning, they'd all been decoded.
I love it. Now that's service.
That's right. And so
that wasn't just ticking the right radio button, the software on it.
yeah, and as a result, there is now a little button on the modern versions of WSJT called maximum drift.
Right. Okay.
And if you've got no drift, you set that to 0, which gives you a little bit better sensitivity than trying to track the drift. If you've got a drifting signal on 2 meters or something, you probably only set it to 5 or 10.
Yep.
But if you set it to 50, it can actually handle Doppler shifts of up to 25 hertz per second.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay.
And that's equivalent to an aeroplane flying very fast at right angles.
That's your fighter aircraft flying across the path.
Yes.
At Mark 4. Yes.
Yeah. So it essentially for all ordinary type aircraft means no matter where they fly, you can decode them.
Fantastic.
And the interesting thing about this Doppler is it works even though the signal's coming in very rapid short bursts.
Yep. Okay.
And if we look at that part of the diagram,
We can.
when the aircraft's flying roughly in line with the path, the one at the left has a Doppler shift of 1.8 hertz per second.
Yep.
And there's some slow QSB.
Okay.
But the one at the right is the Doppler shift of 15.5 hertz per second.
Yep.
And you can see we're dealing with very rapid QSB. I can't remember what size that is, but I think that's probably 20 dB or 30 dB, isn't it?
It's up to 40 actually. That's
40.
0 to 40.
Yeah, so about 30 dB of variation.
Yep.
And despite that, the program can actually handle it.
Wow. Okay.
Now, what we have found is that it's best to use the 15-second period.
Right.
Again, because you've got a chance of hitting the peaks. And of course, if an aircraft's crossing very fast, if you run for 60-second periods, it'll be gone before you ever...
Yeah, well and truly.
But if we put that one in front of... This is 3 periods. You can probably just see 2 lines across, can you?
Yeah.
Now, that separates each of the 3 periods. You can see this aircraft was just visible in the bottom period, was fairly strong in the middle period,
Yep.
and tailed off in the top period.
Yep.
And yet, all of these 3 decode.
Minus 11, minus 4, minus... so plus 6, minus 11.
Yeah. So when the aircraft's right in the middle, it went to plus 6. And
Well,
these periods are only 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So having Q65 in 15-second periods enables you to pick up
Huge amount
And
of
of course
signal.
you've got the ability to transfer the 4 packets to make a contact effectively.
well, the aircraft that produced this, by the way, was flying from Auckland to Perth
Oh, okay, so it was definitely right angles.
and flying down the middle of Bass Strait.
Yep, okay.
So, in terms of a QSO, you wouldn't, you haven't actually got enough. You'd need 4 periods to complete a QSO. So,
1 minute you wouldn't have enough.
you would even with 15 seconds, you wouldn't have enough.
Yeah.
But it just demonstrates the power of this version of WSJT
The
with the
Q65,
drift correct
well and truly.
with Q65.
So, if I take it one step further, what about meteor scatter? Like, is that because
That's too short.
yeah, okay, right.
Now, what we did, what Roger W3SZ and I did is we compared a whole lot of different modes.
Okay.
Now, Roger wrote a simulation to do this.
Okay.
And what you can see is as the Doppler shift goes out, starts at 0, which is the most sensitive for various modes.
Yep.
And when it gets out to 20.
So this is 0 to 20 in these columns. That's the shift.
Per second, the Doppler shift is.
Hertz per second, well and truly.
Yeah. Now, the top one was before Joe added the drift correction.
Okay.
The top 3.
Yeah, okay. They've got the asterisk next to them.
Yeah. Then the next one down is
$15 which is 2.5 with maximum drift set to 50. Yeah.
And you can see now with this maximum drift,
It's everything. It's decoded all the way to 20
hertz per second, and you haven't lost that much. You've gone from -23 to -17. Now, when you compare that to iSCAT that we used to use,
yep, which is down here.
Yeah, and other mode that I've never used but Roger had used was JT9 in its various forms.
Yep.
At 20 hertz per second, the new one is picking up about 12 dB.
Oh, truly. It's
and even at low drifts, it's picking up 5 dB.
Yep.
On iSCAT, zero drift, it's picking up 5 dB on iSCAT and JT9.
Yep. Yeah.
So this is, I think, a very significant breakthrough for aircraft scatter.
That's fantastic, Rex.
And that's
and some great empirical analysis. That's what I love about it.
And the brilliant thing was Joe Taylor. You send him some files and he comes back the next. I don't know how long it actually took him, but I didn't wake up till the next morning, and here they're all decoded.
Fantastic.
That's pretty flash.
That is very flash indeed. And that just again, that's DUBUS magazine. That's Q4 of 2021, so it's the last one for 2021, and it's the 50th anniversary.
Still getting to if you want to.
So,
I think the subscriptions haven't finished yet. If you contact.
So, yes, yeah. Contact XTK, well and truly. And if you're interested, let us know, and we can pass on details and all sorts of stuff. So
$48 a year.
there'll be. And then once a year they put a selected number of articles together into a Technics magazine. I think there was some in those boxes.
I haven't got to those yet.
Oh, okay. So there's little thicker volumes that they put a little sort of almanac together. So there you go. Well, that is fantastic. Thank you, Rex, and thank you, Richard. Great.
Happy to be involved. Really, it's pretty sort of cool when you really think about how far you can work on 10 gigs. We do microwave links at work that are like still pretty impressive, like 40 kilometres.
Data rate might be a bit better.
Yeah, but still, the difference between 40 kilometres and
2,000.
and the rigmarole that we go through to do alignments.
Yes.
And path calculations and stuff, and this was 2,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
Well and truly. And the person who you were trying to think of is Colin.
Oh, that's right.
And thank you, Kevin, VK4UH, who's watching.
Hello, Kevin.
So it's Colin, VK5DK.
DK.
So thank you very much, and hello to Anthony G, and also David Goodrick as well. So hello to them. So we've got a few watchers tonight. So good stuff. All right. I have a little bit of a quick update. We had our AGM last week, and great roll up to the AGM. Our committee looks very similar apart from one position, and which is our Secretary and Public Officer, who used to be Tony, VK7 VKT, is now Lee, VK7 LEE. So thank you to Tony, who's stepping out of the committee, but he is continuing in a role of Communications and Media Officer. So I'm looking forward to big things from Tony after he gets over his little COVID scare at work. So good luck and stay safe, Tony. Now, ex-officio officers, the change apart from the only change apart from the Communications and Media Officer is we now have, instead of just having a single repeater officer, we now have a repeater subcommittee, which is made up of Damien, VK7 SD, Hayden, VK7 HH, Michael, VK7 MRS, and welcome back to Michael as a member of REAST, so welcome, and also yours truly. So there is a bit of sharing of load and a bit of redundancy in the repeater space. So yeah, and one of the things I'm going to play for our RF viewers, I can't play it on air, but one of the actually, yes, I could actually play it on air. There actually isn't a copyright issue there, but anyway, I'm not going to stretch the relationship with YouTube. But one of the videos that I'm playing tonight is actually the video recording of the AGM. Because it was a Zoom, you could attend via Zoom, and a couple of people did attend via Zoom. We were able to actually record the AGM, and also, more importantly, the repeater presentation after the AGM, which Damien gave us. So it just gives you an idea about what the repeater roadmap in southern Tasmania is looking like. So I'm going to play that. Also going to play, the other video I'm going to play is a pre-release rush, I suppose you'd say in film terms, pre-release rush of the Open Day video of the different pictures and video that we took on the Open Day, and Richard features on that particular video.
I was excited, okay?
He was very excited. I managed to capture that moment, Rex, when Richard made the contacts. Very excited Richard.
Yes.
Very excited Richard. And then Richard, after the last bit on that video is Richard describing the contact with himself and then the contact with Roger in New Zealand. So it's a good. I just hope that the enthusiasm comes across, because there was an awful lot of enthusiasm in the tent. So which was fantastic. So that's.
It was electric, as Richie would say.
Oh, well and truly. So thank you to our viewers tonight. That's our show for tonight. And thank you again to Rex and Richard for coming in and sharing and getting a fantastic presentation together. And I hope it enthuses people out there to get involved with contests, with contacts, make more contacts with microwaves. And it's not that hard. It's definitely not that hard. With a little bit of help from fantastic Elmers that we have in the club. So yeah, that's our show for tonight. We have another show next week, and keep an eye on Facebook events for what is coming up. And we'll head to our videos in a short while. So 73, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.